YouTube? This is Cover 2 Credits, and today we're going to be talking about the new Star Wars.
This week we're going to do things a little different with this review. Kevin and I have both discussed the groups of questions and the topics we want to hit. We couldn't film together, so I'm going to answer the 5, he's going to answer the 5. I think I'm going to skip back and forth, so we'll break down each thing. Now, our first two things we're going to cover, spoiler-free. There will be a large... You'll know when the spoilers begin. If you have not seen the movie Star Wars The Last Jedi, please stop watching when I put the spoiler warning up. After that, it is free reign. We are not holding anything back. All the storyline is up for grabs. We're going to kind of hit on anything, things we like, things we didn't like, go from there. So first, let's just talk about characters. Obviously, you have a lot of returning characters. Rey, Kylo, and Luke, and Leia, and Poe, and Finn, and Chewie, and everybody. I mean, a couple had issues with, like, their storyline, but nobody had issues acting. No, there's never... These aren't movies you have to worry about bad acting in. Sometimes story arcs get a little fuzzy. We'll get to that a little later. We even had a few new characters. We finally got to see who Snoke is. We met Rose. And again, the acting is great. Andy Serkis as Snoke. The guy knows what he's doing when he's a CG character. It'll be interesting to see what comes of that. But I enjoyed the acting. The acting was good. I didn't have any problem with any of the characters. You know, the characters all seemed. This is going to sound strange, but if you see this movie and you kind of watch everything, they all seemed themselves. It wasn't like anything was out of left field, anything was way out of the ordinary, except for maybe one thing, and I'll get to that in the spoilers. There's one specific, my personal only real big issue was one specific thing, and it just took me out of the scene, but I'll get to that.
We'll talk about the characters first, and we've got Rey, obviously, and I think she actually does pretty well in this. You don't really see anything great out of her, at least to me, but she definitely plays her role as the sort of coming of age, becoming a Jedi thing, and does a good job with it. Poe, he was one of the characters I had the most problem with in this. Not really because of anything he did in particular from an acting standpoint, but because of the way that the movie portrayed him. Just sort of drove me crazy. Leia was fine. Luke, I thought, was sort of an idiot in this one, but that was also fine. And then Finn, Rose, Kylo. Again, there's just something that just missed with me with those guys. And the Finn thing was pretty cool. I didn't really like Rose that much because they sort of plugged her in as a side character, and then, like I said, I'll explain that more later when we get into the nuts and bolts of the thing. But overall, like I said, the movie had really good stuff, and it had really not great stuff to me.
Next, I'm just going to do a review. You know, I'm going to say, I recommend to go see this movie if you're a Star Wars fan. You may not like it. You may love it. I kind of fell in the middle. To me, it's above average. It's higher than what a lot of the review sites are saying from what fans are saying. Critics seem to like this movie a lot. It's making tons of money. I'm going to give it an 8.
So, Stairs tells me he wants to do an early review and then start hitting the spoilers. So, I'm going to give this movie a 7. Now, that's pretty low compared to what most people have given it, but I will explain my reasons for that in the spoiler section if you want to hear them. But like I said, this is a good movie, and a lot of people will really like it, especially, I think, the younger kids. And this movie seems sort of focused on them to them, it's probably gonna be a pretty high up there movie. I know most of the sites online gave it mid 80s to mid 90s scores. Like I said, I'm giving it a 7 though, because I think it sort of just missed its target audience, but therefore, I don't know. I mean, Disney's going to make so much money off of it, it won't really matter what we say, but that's just my view. I'm going to give it a 7.
Now, this is spoiler territory. If you have not seen this movie, turn back now. Do not continue. We're going to break this down to plot, and then I'll talk about one of my main issues, and we'll talk about one of Kevin's issues with the movie, and then we'll be done.
Okay, now, spoiler section.
I think there were some story things that didn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. Again, I'm never one to say that was stupid, because somewhere on the line there probably was a reason for these decisions. We'll just get into a couple of them that I thought, why? Snoke's end, and any kind of explanation who he really was, didn't make sense to me. Wasn't my biggest problem, but did not make sense to me. I enjoyed seeing Yoda. The casino world was very, very cool. Crate was very, very cool. I didn't even mind Luke's end. I thought that was kind of poignant and worthwhile. Yes, I would have loved to have seen an actual fight, but this is also the first Star Wars movie in the saga films where we did not get a single lightsaber to lightsaber connection. Yes, I know, Rogue One, not a saga film, but out of the saga films, this is the first one to not have a lightsaber to lightsaber connection. It's a 2.5 hour movie that does not feel 2.5 hours to me. Now let's get to the thing that took me out of a scene that kind of bothered me in the long run. Things are strange with how it can't be easy to figure out how to write out an actress like Carrie Fisher. From what the rumor was, 8 was supposed to be Luke's movie. 9 was going to be Leia's movie, in theory of what's going on. Obviously, now we know that cannot happen. Early in the movie, there is an explosion in the ship. One of the ship is hit, and the bridge explodes, and everyone is sucked out on the bridge, including Admiral Akbar, who gets a little bit of a notice, but that's it for a fairly important character in the Star Wars world. Just killed like that, and that's it. Leia also out in space, thinking, wow, they killed. Nope. She comes to and uses force powers to fly back to the ship and survive. Now, I know Leia is force sensitive. I know she might even be a slight force user. But to survive the vacuum of space and to survive an explosion like that took me out of everything. And then to fly back into the ship and survive just took me out of the scene completely. And maybe it's just me, but that was the thing that bothered me the most. Let's go to Kevin's.
The plot of this movie drove me nuts. There are so many just ridiculous things happening for reasons that did not make sense. The start of the movie was fine. You got the beginning space battle, they're all running away. That's fine. Then you've got the carrier fleeing scene that starts, and that's sort of what the whole movie is based around. is the rebels running from the Empire and trying to get away, while the Empire's chasing them in a giant destroyer ship, which always seems sort of silly to me, but that's how the whole movie was based around, basically. And you've got... the whole thing was just sort of contrived to me. Like, you've got what's supposed to be hours and hours and days of one ship chasing this other ship and just bombarding it with missiles the whole time, and nothing's working or happening. And that didn't make sense to me. And then, magically, Finn and Rose are able to get in their own life pod, and then, magically, they can hyperspace in the pod, which didn't make sense to me, and then they can hyperspace back to the ship. Like, if you've got that sort of options, why couldn't they have just picked up some, I don't know, ship fuel or something and come back with it? Or why couldn't they have tried to smuggle people off the ship and start evacuating? Like, they had options which they just didn't do, and I never really found out why. It's like they were breaking their own, I don't know, whatever they were trying to do with that scene. And then you've got the whole Poe thing, where you're trying to push that Leia's sort of trying to make Poe into a commander, and he never follows orders, and Leia's trying to show him that you need discipline to go along with his, like, heroic, gung-ho attitude. And to me, that's not a bad, like, story, I guess. But the way they did it just seemed like such a childish, sort of overarching moral thing that you would get with, like, The Lion King or something. Like some really kids-oriented Disney movie, and like you're trying to show a morality play, and it's just weird, man. Like, the whole thing was just weird. It was so just Disney-fied, all of it. Like, the only thing that was really cool was the back and forth between Rey and Kylo. And I mean, they had a lot of, is he good, is he not good, is she good, is she going to go over to the dark side with him? Like, that to me was really well done and really cool. And then they just sort of, I don't know, lost it. Like I said, everything was just so Disney-fied and odd. So, I don't know. But that was one of the things that drove me crazy. It's just how just Disney this was. And to me, Star Wars is supposed to be more, I guess, adult-oriented. I mean, it's not like super hardcore R-rated like thing. And, you know, it has violence, but it doesn't, like, have a ton of gratuitous sex or gratuitous violence or any of that stuff going on. But, you know, it's got more adult-oriented themes to it. To where, like, the Star Wars war movie was called, Rogue One. Like, Rogue One, that's a great Star Wars movie to me. And it was really cool and awesome, and I like that movie a lot. But you could tell this movie was meant for an audience that was much younger. And I know that Star Wars is really big with kids, but to me, you're taking away from that overarching story by moving the target audience from, you know, adults to children. And I think you lose something in the transition. Like, you can still have a good story, and this movie does have a good story, but to me, it just doesn't... It just sort of lost what I feel like it should have had. And maybe I'm, you know, projecting falseness onto it, where it doesn't really deserve it, and it should be able to be whatever it wants to be. But to me, it just didn't really feel right. It didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. Like, the villains were too cheesy and dumb, and all of the plot just seemed so contrived between the stupid carrier fleeing stuff and the Finn and Rose doing this casino planet, like, revolution with the kids, and, like, it was just so contrived. And it just did not feel right to me. So, that's why I gave it a 7. Like I said, it's not that it's a bad movie. It's not. The visuals are awesome. It's got a lot of really cool story in it, but so much of it just feels so forced. A lot of it just feels forced. So, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for tuning in.
You know, there are still some movies coming up for the end of the year. Before the end of the year, we're going to try to do our top movies of the year, most anticipated of next year, and go from there. You know, we hope you guys have a good holiday. We are going to take off next week with Christmas, and won't have a review up. We may have a video up, but it will not be a review. And if there are any, we're going to possibly have some games and some book reviews coming. If there are any movies you guys are looking forward to, let me know. I think I'm going to try to see The Shape of Water. I'm going to try to see The Greatest Showman, and do some reviews for those. You know, we're always interested to see what you guys think. And this movie has been very divisive between fans. Let us know what you guys think if you've seen The Last Jedi. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. And as always,
Thanks for staying till after the credits.